BF's 25. Parents have complete control of him, despite him renewing his lease today. He's 25. This is insane. They have alienated us for a month. We were going to have dinner tonight and snuggle, and I got a mystery text, can't make it, plans change. We worked so hard to get him moved out last year. So many people on here can't leave because of financial issues. He saved up a massive amount of money, 4 years worth of rent, and had a full-time job. We all rallied behind him, his friends, my friends, our coworkers. He had a village. Over a period of a year, we uncovered a misdiagnosis, confirmed by specialists, and he was able to get off the meds. They had him erroneously diagnosed with bipolar after he had reacted to his abuse and got the cops called on him and hauled to the psych unit. We were also able to get him to a neuropsychologist and uncover what's really been going on, OCD and ADHD. His parents say the diagnosis is false. Any doctor he's seen while he was with me are all wrong. When they found out I was helping with all of this, they lost their shit, started calling me a controlling abuser. They have confiscated his currently prescribed meds and forced him on the old ones he worked so hard to get off of. He made a perfectly normal, legal, $500 purchase related to health. They forced him to destroy it. We recently found a therapy program to address all these issues, but now he says he can't be honest because he's now doing it from their house. They forced him to delete all photos of me. They are tracking his every movement. Any attempt he makes to speak up, they tell him he's too mentally ill, doesn't know what he's talking about. Anytime he says no, they say he's an adolescent. They're sick of his little drama, etc. He still has 2 months on the current lease, but every time he wants to go home he gets beleaguered. Every time he says no, they spend hours turning into a yes. They will bombard him with endless texts and calls. He's constantly interrogated. He's constantly told he will fail without them. He's constantly told he's too disabled to do this on his own. They're forcing him to go to college despite him having said not ready 100 times, in a field he has no aptitude for or interest in. He had said so many times these choices are not his own. He still has his own apartment. Today his mother was going to pack everything up, even though he has 2 months left. He told all of us he knows how wrong this is, took the plunge today, and renewed the lease. And then they found out, and he disappeared again. Can't make it. Plans changed. My friend and I walked to his apartment, and of course he was not there. Yesterday and today he talked about how he knows how wrong this all is. He took the plunge and renewed the lease. They immediately demanded he contact property management and tell them he changed his mind. I'm exhausted, I'm spent, I'm sick, and he will not listen to anyone and keeps choosing this. Last time he lived there, he slept with a Glock under his bed, ready to end his life because he said he never even knew there was the option to just leave. He's talked about learned helplessness, being controlled this way his whole life, and Stockholm Syndrome. We helped him do that. We all rallied around him for his safe passage. And now he's gone back. Update. So my now ex blocked me and said the relationship was bad for him. This degradation of our relationship took place over the month of December at the direction of his parents. We were supposed to have our 1-year anniversary January 1st. Some context. My ex had been diagnosed in childhood with Tourette's and OCD. In October, he was additionally diagnosed with ADHD, which altogether makes up something called the Tourette's clinical triad. What most people don't know, including myself until I researched it, is that the tics associated with Tourette's are only the tip of an iceberg of many different comorbidities. ADHD is the most commonly co-occurring condition, as well as ASD and learning disorders. In addition to the above, I strongly suspect my ex is autistic and vulnerable to being heavily manipulated and swayed. I am autistic, and it was immediately obvious to me. It was suggested to him by several clinicians now to pursue testing for it as well. I think this is how his family was able to do this and how he, completely despite all evidence the contrary, would eventually turn on me after enough time with his parents. The entire year of 2024 I spent attempting to help free my partner from what he divulged to me were a domineering, overbearing, incestuous mother, more about her behavior at this post, and an emotionally hostile and abusive alcoholic father, who he was afraid of his entire life. When he told me he was living with a gun under his bed and had this plan of ending it, I leapt into action to get him out of there. He then told his family that I pushed him to do it, but he told me that he was constantly ready to flee from there. My ex has now completely turned on me. When he was having suicidal ideation again recently, I honored his request to not go to the hospital, as that is what his parents had made him do in the past. Instead, I researched and found him a program that took his insurance, wouldn't interfere with his job, and that he could do from the comfort of home. I felt so happy he could get the support he needs without disruption to his life. He ultimately told me the program was helping. However, He went to his parents and presented it to them as, "She has me in so many appointments I don't have time for anything else." This was the beginning of the end. He then started telling his parents everything I say to him in confidence. If I told him they are abusive, he would go to them and say, "She says you're abusive." If I reminded him that when he lived there before, he became suicidal to the point of sleeping with a gun under his bed and that I was terrified he would feel that again, he would go and tell them, "She says I'm going to kill myself if I move back in." He admitted that when his parents would tear me down, he would just join them and say all this stuff. Eventually, he started acting increasingly more hostile toward me. I had a spare set of keys to his apartment that I have never used once. He asked for them back because he said his parents told him to. He would snap at me not to touch him, when before he had always asked me for physical touch because as an undiagnosed autistic dude, he experienced massive touch starvation from being socially isolated. He told me that physical touch was more healing to him than any therapy. This was the one that really got me. He told me that after a year together, "I don't even know who you are." A line from his parents. This guy has worked alongside me for over a year, watched my best friend get married, met my grandparents, met my best guy friend, met my friend who is also my roommate and lived here at the house with us for 2 weeks, and been over countless times. He knows my whole life story, all my likes and dislikes and tastes and traumas and triumphs. I was very vulnerable with him. I've held him in my arms as he was falling apart so many times. I fiercely advocated for him with his mental health. He thanked me so many times for sticking with him through all of this. He definitely knows me. He went to the same family he just told me over the last year insidiously stripped him of his self-identity and caused a lot of harm, and pointed the finger at me. This all happened very quickly. I had to quit my job because he worked right next to me. I got very sick in December from the shock of everything. I wasn't able to eat or sleep and started to lose weight and look really unwell. He told me absolutely insane things like, "My parents said you're just using me for college money." I was on a medical hiatus from school our entire relationship. I have always paid for school using grants and loans, and the thought that my boyfriend should pay for my college never even occurred to me. It wasn't a thought I have ever had in my head. Hearing him say that was the first time that idea had come across my horizon, from the imagination of these absolute lunatics. His mom in particular was driving a lot of this. Keeping in mind what I wrote above about him mentioning she was incestuous, her motivations were pretty transparent. From the very beginning of the relationship, she seemed to seethe with resentment of any time we were spending together. We would routinely take time apart, a week at a time, as I relish my alone time to read and do hobbies and reconnect with my own life. Then, when we'd get together for the first time that week, she'd call and see if he wanted to come over for dinner, and he'd tell her he's with me. She'd say, "You spend all your time with her. Boyfriend gave me a ride to work a mile up the street on his day off." She'd extrapolate, "What, do you do everything for her?" She'd complain about how he doesn't ever go over there anymore because he's spending all his time with the neighbor girl. I have no idea what this means. Maybe like a girl next door? When he was moving out, she's text him and ask if he even loved her anymore. I have a post on my profile where I detail her other behaviors. His personality changed so much quite literally almost overnight, after he first initiated contact with his family and they want to work on him. To make this short, he has now blocked me and said, "This relationship is not good for me." I was willing to move heaven and earth for him, but this is where it stands.